Part 65. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 641. Lin Yi's true destiny has been unlocked, and he can see everything outside. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. There is a strange ocean with no other colors except black water. There is not even anything else on the spectrum level, not even the most basic forces such as magnetic field, light, and gravity. An ocean made up purely of black water, and the most conspicuous thing is a huge snake-like thing made up of countless corpses in the black water. There is a huge bloody eye on its body at intervals. However, the blood color is not clear in the dark, and it can only be seen when you get close, just like the eyes in front of the floor-to-ceiling window just now. At this time, the huge snake is moving slowly, disappearing into the distance along the endless black water. It seems that it was just a little curious about the Wanchaiwu just now, but after it could not affect everyone, it no longer paid attention. Just like people see ants, step on them, and don't care whether they live or die. Seeing the strange long snake-like existence disappear, Ian's eyes showed a trace of relief. He could naturally see that the power of that thing just now was very strong. In terms of energy alone, the strange power it possessed was more than 100 times that of Dao Tianxian, Gu Huahui, and others. Head-on confrontation is definitely not a good method. If this thing just now attacked the Wanchi house, he didn't know whether the other party could break the space-time barrier between the Wanchi house and the other world. But fortunately, the other party didn't seem to be very interested in the Wanchi house. The large strange existence that Lin Yi saw several times in the Wanchi house didn't seem to be very interested in the Wanchi house. The target is too small to waste power. Lin Yi had some thoughts in his mind, thinking. At this time, changes were also happening outside. The black water began to slowly recede as the strange existence went away. Then the still barren other world was revealed, with strange trees everywhere. They didn't seem to be destroyed in the black water just now, but were simply submerged. But Lin Yi didn't see the strange existence again. At this time, various movements began to appear in the Wanchi house. The TV hanging in the hall suddenly lit up. Zzz. There were countless snowflakes on the screen, and a strange face could be vaguely seen on it. It was a very distorted face, and his two hands were reaching out of the TV screen. The screen slowly bulged, and two dry, wrinkled arms stretched out from it. But at the moment when its hands stretched out, Whiskey had already stood in front of the TV silently, with cold eyes. Two huge hands had already grabbed the claws of this strange existence, and then suddenly dragged it out and threw it heavily to the ground. Boom! With a muffled sound, the whole Wanchaiwu echoed with the sound of the collision. A strange existence wearing tattered white clothes, with long hair scattered casually, a face full of cracks, and two dark eyes was thrown to the ground. It was like a weak lamb, with no resistance in Whiskey's hands, and was held at will. Whiskey had already stepped on its head. Puff! This strange existence exploded on the spot, and its body twitched a few times, and then it stopped moving. Then its body quickly decayed, turned into black smoke and disappeared, and was sucked into the Wanchaiwu. A wisp of pure strange power was sucked into Lin Yi's body. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. The Wanchaiwu can still connect to the other world, at least there will be no shortage of strange power. The Wanchaiwu became lively again at night. The maze guards also began to continue to clean up the invading strange existence. And Lin Yi lowered his head and continued to look at the scroll in his hand. This is one of the many classics he exchanged from the sect, which once existed and even flourished in the Red Lotus realm. He read one by one, absorbing and understanding the information and mysteries in it. Time passed day by day, and many days had passed in a blink of an eye. In the Wanchaiwu, everyone went from being uncomfortable and worried at the beginning to being accustomed to it now. In addition to some fixed entertainment every day, they practiced and polished their strength. During this period, the wish shrine in the Wanchaiwu has never been activated. It seems that in this endless void, the power of the wish shrine is not enough to activate, and it is restricted by the void. At this time, a brand new acacia bell is placed in front of Lin Yi. This is a replica created after he understood the acacia bell through the True Destiny Daoji. Among them, the acacia bell is the original authentic one, but it was repaired by him after it was broken, and it lost its connection with the original mother bell. Therefore, Lin Yi collected the essence of this brand new sun bell, and then followed the True Destiny Daoji's understanding of the mother bell. With this essence and the power of the True Destiny Daoji and the True Destiny root, a new acacia mother bell was created. However, this is not a simple matter. It took him a lot of spiritual waves and time to create this mother bell from scratch. He has experimented with the sun and mother bell in the Wanchaiwu, and it can indeed be used normally, at least within the scope of the Wanchaiwu. As for whether it can travel through different worlds like the authentic one, it needs to be verified in the future. It needs more strange power to nurture it so that its quality can be continuously improved. The acacia bell flashed and disappeared in front of him, merging into the Wanchaiwu. The acacia bell is the foundation for the Wanchaiwu to travel through countless worlds in the future, and it must not be lost. This is why he spent countless hours repairing it. At this time, opposite Lin Yi sat Sakuramiya Shirley, who was absorbing strands of energy from the void. After these energies were absorbed into his body, they would be forged dozens of times to extract the parts she needed, and the rest would be discharged. Today's homework seemed to be over, and she looked at Lin Yi. It's been a few months, I don't know how long we will float. Lin Yi shook his head, I don't know that either. After all, the void is endless, and no one can predict the future. At least in this Wanchaiwu, we are still safe. With the infinite space, a second-level weird item, we can wander safely in the void. Sakuramiya Shirley smiled, maybe, it's better than death. Just as the two were talking, Brandy's voice suddenly sounded. Manager, look, what is that? After receiving Brandy's voice, Lin Yi frowned and looked outside. Then he was surprised to find a blue planet appeared in front of him. Lin Yi looked at the planet, and it seemed to overlap with what he had seen before. The blue planet, which looked like the Earth, was so dazzling in this lonely and dark void. At the same time, on both sides of this blue planet, there were two celestial bodies, one large and one small, floating. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 642. The big celestial body is an orange-red planet, like the Sun. The small celestial body is a snow-white sphere like the Moon. They orbit the blue planet in the center, slowly rotating, bringing day and night to the planet. Suddenly Lin Yi's pupils shrank, and he saw an amazing scene. I don't know when, the dark void outside turned into an infinite Milky Way starry sky. It seemed that in an instant, the Wanchaiwu passed through some barrier and entered a brand new universe. But he soon discovered that all the stars in the universe were very far away from these three celestial bodies, and they were as bright as the Milky Way and spread across the void. Lin Yi keenly noticed that this piece of void seemed to be a little different. The light of the true destiny flashed in his eyes, and he instantly saw what was different. In the void outside, the originally violent energy still had a trace of spirituality. But now, all the energy in this piece of void has lost any trace of spirituality. There is only a pure dead silence, as if this is a completely spiritual void world. When he noticed this, Sakuramiya Shirley opposite him also changed her expression. She clearly felt that the energy flowing into the Wanchaiwu from the outside world had no spirituality at all, and it was impossible to be absorbed and refined. She instinctively shuddered in her heart, just like coming to an extremely dangerous place, and the danger warning instinct rose. What's going on? Lin Yi frowned. The energy in this piece of void energy cannot be absorbed and refined at all. This is a dead end for practitioners. Once the power of practitioners is consumed, there will be no possibility of recovery. When Lin Yi thought of this, a chaotic light appeared in his hand. This light contains a trace of spirituality, which is the spirituality in energy. He raised his hand and shook it, and this ball of light flew out of the Wanchai Wu. The next moment, a terrible thing happened. This ball of energy cannot exist in the void at all. In just an instant, the spirituality in it dissipated in the void, leaving no drop. The energy ball that was originally controlled by Lin Yi also dispersed into a little bit of light in an instant, and was no longer under his control. Seeing this scene, the three practitioners in the hall all changed their expressions. Sakuramiya Shirley's expression also changed. There is something wrong with this void. At this moment, the Wanchai was seemed to be attracted by something. It began to rush towards the blue star in front at an astonishing speed, falling like a comet. Everyone's expression changed, and Ling Ai's expression became serious at this time. His will has been connected to the entire Wanchai Wu. Zhenming Wujiang will cover the Wanchai Wu at any time to ensure that it will not be destroyed during the fall. After all, the house fell from the sky. Although it was reduced to the size of a human head by relying on the infinite maze, the destructive power it caused would be very terrifying. Imagine a meteorite hitting the earth and you will know. If it is not good, the Wanchai Wu will become a ruin. And now there is another change. The strange power of the infinite maze is being consumed rapidly, in order to maintain the state of the Wanchai Wu shrinking in the space barrier. Lin Yi's face condensed slightly. Everyone in the Wanchai Wu saw that they were falling towards the blue planet. Everyone's face was very ugly, even Brandy's soles were buckled. Everything happened very suddenly. In the void, the Wanchai Wu seemed to be stretched straight, and an inexplicable gravity enveloped it. If you look at the void from the outside, you will find an amazing thing. The Wanchai Wu seemed to be twisted, and it instantly crossed hundreds of millions of kilometers, like a thin thread connected to the blue planet. In just a few breaths, the Wanchai Wu has rushed into the atmosphere of the blue planet. It is like a small comet, crashing towards the ground. China, Wanjin City. This is a border port city on the sea, located where the seas of the Blue Star Dahan country and Yingzhou country overlap. It is also a major port and one of the most prosperous regions in China. At night, the world is dark, and endless galaxies hang high in the sky. A silver moon is so dazzling, and the dimly lit Wanjin city is full of lights and wine, and is full of luxury. The atmosphere of capital and fall is everywhere. Even at night, the streets here are brightly lit, and countless people are flowing here. Their eyes are shining with hope for life, and also confused about life. At this time, a fierce light in the sky attracted everyone's attention. Countless people looked up at the sky, and it was a group of things shrouded in inexplicable twisted light. And this group of things was falling straight towards Wanjin city, and this scene instantly scared everyone silly. Some people even thought that the end of the world was coming, and they knelt down on the spot. What is that? Meteorite falling. Run. At the same time as this twisted light fell, there were some eyes looking at Wanjin city from all over the planet. Almost all of these people were full of spirit and full of a perfect temperament. Wanjin city fell into a state of complete terror, and countless people were frantically scattered, trying to get away from the place where they fell. In the horrified eyes of countless people, the distorted light suddenly rushed into Wanjin city. But something strange happened. There was no earthquake, no exclamation, no explosion, nothing happened. It seemed that the distorted light that fell had never existed, but was just their illusion. At this time, hundreds of meters underground in Wanjin city, the Wanchi house stopped quietly. A ball of green light enveloped it, and at the same time a ball of chaotic power spread out from the Wanchi house and enveloped it. Lin Yi stood in the Wanchi house, his expression was very serious. At the moment when the Wanchi house fell, he exerted his power to control the fall of the Wanchi house, and at the same time covered it with the boundless true destiny, so that it fell into the ground without being noticed by anyone. But at this moment, he found a huge problem. His power was lost at an unimaginable speed. Once his power was exposed to the outside air, his spirituality would be extracted, his energy would lose control, and finally dissipate in the soil. At this rate, if he continued to use his power, even if he had the power of the Tianxian Dao level, he could only support it for an hour at most before all his energy was sucked dry. After sensing this change, he immediately made a decision. He looked at the people in the Wanqi room. "I'll be back in a few minutes." As he spoke, he disappeared from here in a flash, and the power of the space-time canvas continued to activate, allowing him to jump in space. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 643. Lin Yi shuttled through the mud, and after a few ups and downs, he had come to the ground. All the power was deeply bound inside his body, but he still felt that the spirituality of his power was rapidly fading. He stood in a dark alley. His eyes were very solemn. At this moment, he could feel that the spirituality of his power was being forcibly extracted bit by bit. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. This world devours all spirituality, even the spirituality hidden deep in the body cannot be avoided. This world is a bit scary. It is the absolute nemesis of supernatural power. Any external supernatural power is not allowed to exist. A trace of solemnity appeared on his face, and Lin Yi's eyes flashed with the brilliance of the true destiny. In an instant, he looked at the entire city. Soon he chose a piece of vacant land in the remote part of the city. It seemed to be the junction of the slums and the bustling streets. A dead-end alley, with an abandoned vacant lot at the end of the alley. With a hint of joy in his eyes, Lin Yi quickly entered a state of true destiny. A few minutes later, he had arrived at this vacant lot. After sweeping his eyes over this area, he was thoughtful. This place is pretty good, suitable for settling down. Thinking of this, he sank underground and returned to the Wanchaiwu again. At this time, the moving black stone slab in the Wanchaiwu slowly exuded a mysterious wave, covering the Wanchaiwu. The next moment, the Wanchaiwu deep underground disappeared here. On the abandoned ground of a dead end in Wanjin City, the void quickly twisted, and a building appeared here. This is a two-story building with a full floor-to-ceiling window mode on the front, exuding a mysterious atmosphere. A faint wave enveloped the building. Conan frowned in the Wanchaiwu, and the previous jump caused an astonishing consumption. The strange power contained in the moving black stone slab consumed 2/3 of the reserve in an instant. Moving such a short distance in the Red Lotus realm consumes less than 1 per 1,000 at most. After feeling this change, he couldn't help but feel a little depressed. The consumption of this strange power is hundreds of times that of the Red Lotus realm. Then if I want to use the Acacia Bell and the Wish Shrine, the strange power consumed will definitely not be less. In the past, when I used these strange objects in the Red Lotus realm, the strange power consumed was pitifully small. But the current situation is not right. This unknown world devours the spirituality of all energy. Even the use of strange objects will consume hundreds of times the strange power. It makes Ling Yi feel more and more that this is not a simple place. The only thing that is not affected is his spiritual wave, this mysterious spiritual power. Although this power cannot act on the material world, it will not affect any other material, energy, time, and space, and soul except the strange power. At this time, Brandy, Absinthe, and others all came to the French window, looking outside with hope. Is it a new world outside? What kind of world is this? Brandy's eyes showed curiosity. Absinthe was also curious. But unfortunately, the place they chose was a dead end. They could only see a 10-meter-long alley, at the end of which was a busy flow of people. But almost no one would enter this alley. Brandy said with some disappointment, "Manager, why did you choose such a place? It looks so remote, there will be no business coming to the door." Lin Yi glanced at him and smiled, "I chose this place to temporarily gain a foothold and avoid being targeted by the strong or powerful people in this world. Before we figure out the situation in this world, we'd better stay put. And we are outsiders, we can't appear in the outside world at will. Because the malice from the world will always be watching us. That is to say, in this Wanchaiwu, the strange power can hide us well, and it can also allow us to slowly adapt to the world. The world can't find us either. We will be safe without causing major damage. So without my order, you can't go out. Once you step out of this door, you will face the malice of the world. We need to wait for an opportunity to get rid of the malice of the world. But even so, we can't stay outside for a long time. Because this world has a biggest problem. It will devour the spirituality in our bodies." Hearing this, Brandy and Vodka both changed their faces. They also saw that when they were in the void, Lin Yi emitted a ball of energy, and then his spirituality was drained and scattered. "Manager, are you saying that the outside is the same as the void?" "Yes, this world is very strange." Sakuramiya surely frowned when she heard this, and a trace of solemnity appeared in her eyes. She also saw the scene in the void. "But it's better than wandering in the void all the time. Although we are like in prison now. The reason why I don't let you go out is that this place will devour spirituality. When we use any power beyond ordinary people, the consumption is hundreds of times that of the Red Lotus realm. In short, this world is the grave of supernatural power. Any supernatural being who stays in this world for a long time will become immortal. All supernatural powers in the body will be deprived. The only exception is strange items. Although their consumption will also increase hundreds of times. But strange power has no spiritual existence, and the Wanchaiwa can also connect to the other world. Strange items are equivalent to having a source of energy." Brandon said with a melancholy face, "Then how long will we stay in the store?" Lin Yi glanced at Brandon, "If it's fast, it will be a few minutes, if it's difficult, it will be a long time. It depends on whether there are people from this world who come to me to fulfill their wishes. But don't worry, we won't be locked up here forever. After all, we can still connect to other worlds. When people from other worlds come to fulfill their wishes, you can also go to other worlds to have a look. From now on, each of you will become a bounty hunter of the Wanchaiwu." Lin Yi had a smile on his lips, looking at vodka, absinthe, brandy, whiskey, etc. Absinthe and vodka's eyes lit up. This was the opportunity they had dreamed of. Brandy's face showed a bit of complexity, but he was also eager to try. After all, they had been drifting in the void for at least a few months. The golden sunlight fell from the sky, and the whole of China became bright. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 644. Last night in Wanjin City, the mysterious meteor that fell from the sky has spread like a storm across the entire planet. Countless mysterious people took the fastest plane to Wanjin City. There are many mysterious people among them. Chengdu, the political center of Tianqinghai. At this time, in a small conference room, satellite images are being watched. There is a meteor falling image recorded by a satellite. A two-story building shrank into a sphere the size of a human head. Then it fell to the ground at an alarming speed. The satellite image kept zooming in, and vaguely saw the figure of someone in the house. But no matter how they zoomed in, the people inside seemed to be shrouded in a layer of shadow, so that they could not see their specific appearance. At this time, a scientist in a white coat said with a serious face, "According to our analysis, this seems to be an unknown visitor. This house should have used some kind of space compression technology. There are traces of humanoid creatures in the house. Now this video has been classified as top secret by us. But other Western countries, their satellites may have also received information about this thing. But fortunately, this unknown visitor fell in Wanjin City. We have sent out all the spies and notified the officials of Wanjin City to conduct a carpet search. Do our best to find this crashed, mysterious building-type void spaceship. The scientist identified Lin Yi's Wanchaiwu as a void spaceship. Several senior executives in the room nodded, one of whom was the most majestic, obviously the president of this term. Just do as you say. Do your best to find this unknown visitor. The international situation is unstable recently, and we need more powerful forces. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. In the Wanchaiwu, everyone was bored and doing their own things. During these 3 days, the wish shrine has not been activated. It seems that no one wants to fulfill their wishes, or the wish shrine needs to consume too much power to activate it now, so it needs to be accumulated. During these 3 days, no one dared to use their own power at will. Their current cultivation power will be reduced by 1 point if they use it. This world is very scary. Although they are still in the Wanchi house and have the protection of the Wanchi house. But as long as the energy in their bodies leaves the body, it will be drained of spirituality in a short time. Even with the protection of the Wanchi house, it cannot prevent the spirituality of these scattered energy from being drained. And the energy that has been drained of spirituality will no longer have the possibility of being used again. And these 3 days are enough to make everyone aware of the danger of this world. Here, their extraordinary power will be suppressed to the extreme. Only pure physical strength is left, but to drive pure physical strength, energy is also consumed. And their bodies are very strong in themselves, and they consume energy every day to maintain their health. Now they have no spiritual energy source to replenish, and one of the phenomena caused is hunger. Hunger from every cell in the body. Faced with this hunger, they can only use their own energy to fill the consumption of cells. In 3 days, each of them consumed 5% of their energy reserves on average. At the current rate, they may starve to death in 2 months. This is a very ridiculous thing. The practitioners of Tianxiandao and Dixiandao will actually starve to death. Of course, this refers to normal circumstances, when there is nothing else to replenish consumption. But Lin Yi exchanged a lot of supplies from the sect, including various kinds of elixirs. These ammunitions were sealed up intact. According to the stock of elixirs, they can at least guarantee that they will not lack energy for decades, as long as they do not engage in fierce fighting. The Wanchaiwu is a wonderful shelter. As long as the spiritual energy is stored in a certain substance, it can be stored here. But if these substances that store spiritual energy are thrown outside the Wanchaiwu, then the result of being drained of spirituality by the world cannot be avoided. During these 3 nights, the Wanchaiwu will be connected to the other world every night. There will also be an endless stream of strange beings entering. However, the number has been greatly reduced, and the level is also rapidly decreasing. Basically, they are only at the level of mortals, or even just entering the immortal realm. The simple maze puppets are enough to deal with these invaders, and there is no need for Brandy and others to do it. However, Lin Yi would not do this, and he would not waste his time. In 3 days, he was basically sure that the wish shrine did not activate due to insufficient weird power. On the night of the 3rd day, the Wanchaiwu finally activated it. A hazy, faint red light slowly appeared on the door. This light was very dim, and it was even difficult to detect if you didn't look carefully. And outside the French window of the Wanchaiwu, the scenery did not change, and it was completely different from the past. Obviously, the activation of the wish shrine seemed very difficult. Lin Yi frowned deeply, and there was a knock on the door outside. Dong dong dong. Lin Yi looked at Absinthe and motioned him to open the door directly. Click. Absinthe walked over with a weird look on his face. As a vengeful spirit, his vengeance also contains a trace of spirituality, so now he will not easily use his power, just like a normal person. Absinthe opened the door of the Wanchaiwu, and a swordsman with a resolute face appeared outside. He was wearing a grey samurai suit and holding a tattered sword in his hand. The scabbard was just two pieces of wood tied together with a belt. His face was full of frost and his beard was sloppy, just like a tramp. But the reason why he was called a swordsman was just because of the faint sword energy on his body. Lin Yi glanced at the other party. Under the true destiny, this man had nowhere to hide. His lifespan was less than 20 years. He was at the peak of the mortal way. The essence in his body was condensed like steel and full of lethality. It hurt both the enemy and himself, a method of cultivating essence purely for killing. At this time, this man's body was full of hidden injuries, and his age was actually no more than 30 years old. The man's eyes were full of vigilance, and he looked at everyone in the Wanchi house with the look of a lone wolf. Absinthe looked at him, and said strangely and dangerously, "Welcome to the Wanchi house, this is where your wishes can come true." As he said that, he made way and gestured with his left hand to invite the man in. The man looked around, and finally he held his sword tightly with his left hand, and then walked in. Lin Yi waved his hand gently, "Please sit down." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 645. The man sat silently opposite Ji Yi, and everyone in the hall looked at him. "This is a house where wishes can come true. I wonder what you want to come true." Hearing Lin Yi's words, the weathered man's face moved slightly. The chapped lips slowly opened, and a hoarse voice said, "Can you really make your wish come true? I can't say it's 100% achievable. But at least most of your wishes can be fulfilled. Including extending your life and treating your physical injuries. Or it can give you strength, it can be done. But it depends on what your wish is to determine whether it can be realized for you. At the same time, any wish comes with a price. What you want to get, you must pay something for." The swordsman nodded silently, "I do have a wish, and I hope it can come true." Lin Yi had a faint smile on his face, "Please tell me." "I had an enemy who killed my whole family. For more than 10 years, I have been wanting to kill him for revenge, but my skills are far inferior to his. Even if I practice the most extreme swordsmanship, the murderous sword, I am still no match for him. Can you give me power? Power enough to kill him?" Lin Yi glanced at this person and said, "Your level is about the second level of the mortal world. How much stronger is your enemy than you are? His swordsmanship and internal strength are all ahead of mine. No matter how hard I struggle, I can't compare to him. My physical strength has become increasingly low over the years. And he seems to have the possibility of a breakthrough. If this continues, I'm afraid the gap between him and me will become wider and wider. So if you can grant my wish, you can do it at any price you want." The weathered swordsman's voice was full of determination. Lin Yi thought for a while, looked at him and said, "I have several methods here, you can choose. First, I will send a person and you take him to kill your enemy. You can let him break your enemy's limbs and put them in front of you, and you can take his life with your own hands. The second option is that I teach you a method that can burst out the power of the innate realm in an instant. The result is that you will definitely die." Lin Yi already had countless classic techniques in his hands, and there was no shortage of methods that could unleash his potential when he was desperate. Especially at the mortal and immortal levels, there are even more such methods. Because these two levels are the most likely to kill people beyond the level. Both approaches come with different costs. You will definitely win using the first method. The price is your soul. After you run out of life and die in the future, you will become my property. For the second method, you still have 20 years to live. You can use 10 years of life to exchange for a technique with explosive potential. The consequences of both approaches vary. Method 1, you can definitely take revenge. The second method, if your enemy hides his strength, then even if you unleash all your potential, you may not be able to kill him. When the swordsman heard the two solutions proposed by Lin Yi, a look of struggle appeared on his face. He is thinking about which method is more suitable. After a while, I thought he had made up his mind. I choose no one. The reason why he encountered this mysterious place this time. The reason is that he heard that his enemy was retreating to attack the innate realm. The other party's place of retreat is in the lair, which is heavily guarded. Even if he learns the secret method of bursting life, he may not be able to rush in and kill his enemy. On the contrary, it is possible to run out of life before even seeing your opponent. Therefore, he is willing to pay the price of his soul and ask others to help him kill his enemies. Even if I fall into a place of eternal destruction, I will definitely take revenge. The blood feud is as great as heaven. Seeing that the man in front of him had made up his mind, Lin Yi nodded slightly. A note appeared in his hand, with the contents of the contract already appearing on it. He placed the note in front of the swordsman. Write your name. After signing the contract, your wish will be fulfilled. The swordsman signed the contract without any hesitation. The contract spontaneously ignited without wind, turning into a mysterious force that wrapped around him and Lin Yi. Lin Yi turned to look at Brandy and the others. Which of you wants to take on this mission? This is the first time Xuanhuan released a task, and everyone is eager to try it. Absinthe smiled strangely and said, leave the store manager to me, I will make this person very satisfied. No one is better at revenge than me. Brandy said righteously, the store manager let me go. This guy's mind is full of twisted thoughts, and he might cause countless things. Let me go and I will do this thing beautifully. Vodka on the side came out, opened his hands, and made a strong pose. The muscles all over his body are bulging high, making him look like a bodybuilder. Store manager, my muscles haven't exercised for a long time. Let me show them the terror of my muscles. Lao Wei and Sakura Gong surely did not come forward. They wanted to get familiar with the affairs of Xuanhuan again. They will not start taking over tasks until the operation of the Xuanhuan is completely stable. Finally, Lin Yi's eyes stopped at Vodka. Let Vodka go this time and show me your value. A hideous smile appeared on Vodka's dark face. Please rest assured, store manager, I will complete this task successfully. As he said, he looked at the swordsman with the vicissitudes of life. Let's go, swordsman AI. AI is the name of this swordsman. The blood feud of his family made him forget what his name was. He named himself AI just to tell himself that he would always be in sorrow. At this time, Lin Yi stood in front of the Xuanhuan door, and a key appeared in his hand. This was a black, very simple key. He threw the key to Vodka. This is the key to any door. When you complete the task, you can use it to open any door, and it will directly connect to the Xuanhuan, allowing you to easily cross the distance limit and return. Now, go and complete the first task. As he said, he looked at the swordsman AI. Open the door, the anywhere door will take you to your destination. The door of the Xuanhuan was closed at this time. AI stood in front of the door. He grasped the door handle and pushed it hard. The next moment, he saw an island in the lake, appearing opposite the door. That was the place he had been thinking about day and night. The old nest of his enemy, Mingjian Villa. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 646. The world's top swordsman, the world-famous peerless swordsman, sword maniac is inside. With a hint of fanaticism in his eyes, he took a step forward. Vodka followed him and came to the shore opposite the island in the lake. This lake is about several thousand square meters in area, and the island in the lake is also 100 meters away from them. This is a natural barrier, and there is no support from the people inside the island in the lake. If they dare to break in rashly, they will be discovered by the people on the island in the lake immediately. Once they get close, they will be greeted by a rain of arrows. These rains of arrows will turn all invaders into hedgehogs. Swordsman AI showed a trace of solemnity in his eyes, thinking slowly. How should we get in next? Vodka glanced at him with a cold smile on his face. What's the difficulty? Follow me. As soon as the voice fell, he had already grabbed the swordsman's arm. Then he exuded a deep dark light all over his body, covering every corner of his body. He suddenly jumped, like a frog, and rushed to the center of the lake. His feet stomped on the water surface and exploded deep pits one after another. The water splashed everywhere, but it provided him with a strong thrust. It made him rush to the island in the lake 100 meters away like an arrow from a bow. And within just 2 seconds after he rushed out, the island in the lake sounded a rapid alarm. Enemy attack. There are enemies. In an instant, the whole island in the lake became lively. And at this time, only 3 seconds had passed, and Vodka had carried the swordsman AI and passed half the distance to the island in the lake. At this time, a series of sharp arrows on the island in the lake had already flown up, arcing in the sky, and coming straight towards them. There were at least more than 100 arrows, and even the top masters of the mortal way would be shot into a sieve by these arrow rains. These arrows were not shot by ordinary bows, but heavy crossbows. This was very terrifying, and a series of arrows crossed the sky, and a series of piercing sounds of breaking through the air sounded. Facing these horrible attacks, Vodka had a ferocious smile on his face. The swordsman AI in his hand showed a trace of despair in his eyes. The next moment, Vodka suddenly stepped on the water. A huge wall of water rose in front of him, and all the arrows that flew fell on the water wall. The arrows lost their power in an instant and fell in the huge waves. At this time, Vodka, with the swordsman, had passed through the water wall and advanced hundreds of meters again. 3 waves of arrows were shot continuously, but they could never touch Vodka. Until he stepped onto the island with the swordsman and faced the hundreds of family soldiers holding bows and crossbows in front of him. At this time, these family soldiers looked terrified and looked at Vodka as if they were looking at a monster. Swordsman AI was in a fog and felt like he was riding a roller coaster. Everything was so magical that he actually arrived on the island without any injury. Vodka's voice rang in his ears, "Stand here and don't move. I'll go and kill these guys first." After saying that, Vodka rushed up like a black tornado. His body was dark, completely different from the people in this world, as if his body was as indestructible as black steel. He rushed into the family soldiers in front with a violent breath, and his whole body directly hit the bodies of the family soldiers. Bang! Boom! Blood flowed, and human bodies flew. In less than a minute, hundreds of fully armed servants had been defeated by Vodka alone. A furious voice rang out from the villa. "Who is it? Dare to break into my Mingjian villa?" A terrifying sword energy rushed out of the villa and slashed directly at Vodka in the air. This terrifying sword energy came across the sky, as if to cut everything into pieces. A kind of crazy breath flashed in the sword light, which was a kind of spiritual power, a kind of sword intent. Facing this will and power, Vodka's eyebrows jumped slightly. The first level of the human immortal way. But you can stretch your muscles a little. With a ferocious smile on his face, Vodka had already punched out. Pure energy covered his arm, making his body indestructible. The black fist collided with the sword energy that came from the air, and the result was obvious. The sword energy was directly blasted into pieces, and the owner of Mingjian Mountain Villa, Jian Quangtu, who followed the sword energy, saw this and changed his face. He felt that the crazy sword intent in his sword energy was directly defeated, and he had no resistance. He had just broken through the innate realm and was about to announce it to the world and become a martial arts legend. Unexpectedly, he was beaten directly to the mountain gate, and the person who came was so terrifying that he shattered his sword energy and sword intent with one blow. He was awed in his heart and shouted, "Who is coming?" But the answer was a black arm that stretched out from the blasting sword energy. This arm grabbed directly at his face. The sword maniac suddenly looked ugly. The other party did not take him seriously at all. Bold. With a roar, he drew his sword. Ringing. His sword made a sound like a silver bell. It was a pitch-black sword with countless starlight points flashing on it. The sword flashed and stabbed towards the center of the grasping palm. This was the magic weapon he had made with great difficulty, using meteorite iron from outer space. It was extremely sharp and indestructible. But something terrible happened. The oncoming palm grabbed his sword, and then an extremely terrifying force burst out directly. His sword instantly broke into countless pieces, and at the same time a dark palm was printed on his chest. Bang! There was no power to resist. The sword maniac had been slapped to the ground on the spot, and his face was full of disbelief. He was a master of innate skills, but he couldn't even take a single blow and was defeated. And he was defeated so miserably, and the terrifying force rushed into his internal organs. All his bones were broken in an instant. This is impossible. His face was full of disbelief, but no one answered him. The answer to him was a foot, which suddenly stepped on his face, causing him to faint. At this time, the swordsman AI was still far away, looking at the scene with a dumbfounded face. The enemy that he had exhausted countless ways to deal with. He was simply stepped on by Vodka. At this time, Vodka waved at him. "Come here, I have broken this guy's bones, and he has no power to resist. You can come and take revenge." Swordsman AI came over after hearing this, his eyes full of murderous intent, complex grief, and the joy of revenge. Countless emotions flashed in his heart, and finally he stood calmly in front of the sword maniac. "Can you help me wake him up? I want him to die soberly." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 647. Vodka nodded, "No problem." He touched the man's chest with his foot, and the sword madman immediately woke up from a severe pain. When he opened his eyes, what he saw was the indifferent swordsman AI standing in front of him. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The expression of the sword madman suddenly changed. "It's you, this is the person you invited." Blood spurted out of his mouth, rage burned in his heart, and he looked at sadness. "It's me. In order to avenge my family's blood feud, I paid a huge price to get where I am now. Now is the time for you to pay for your sins, sword madman." After saying that, he had already picked up his sword and pulled it out of his simple scabbard. It was a sword covered with strange bloody patterns. When the sword madman saw the sword, his eyes showed anger. "The blood-drinking sword is indeed in your hand." Swordsman AI said in a low voice, "This is the sword you have always wanted, and it was because of it that you killed my whole family. Today I can finally take revenge." As he spoke, Swordsman AI's eyes revealed endless murderous intent. Suddenly he stabbed the sword madman in the chest. At this time, all the bones in the sword madman's body were shattered, and he was unable to resist at all. He could only watch helplessly as the silver snow sword pierced his chest. Poof! His face was fierce, his mouth opened, and blood spurted out of it. "I'm not willing to give in. I want to unify the martial arts world, and I want to do it for generations to come. How could I die here? How could I die in the hands of a trash person? Ah!" Puff! He was so angry that he spurted out another mouthful of blood. Due to the powerful vitality of the immortal way, even if the heart has been pierced, he will not die immediately. But in the end he could not escape death. His body trembled for a moment and he stopped moving. Seeing the death of his life and death enemy, Swordsman Ai's whole body trembled slightly. I finally avenge you. His eyes showed excitement and a hint of deathly silence. From then on, he no longer had any thoughts about the world. There is no desire to live anymore. After they completed their mission, Vodka said to Swordsman Ai, "Your revenge has been avenged, and it's time for me to leave. Remember, when your life is over, your soul will be ours." Swordsman Ai looked at Vodka and nodded slightly. "I understand." Vodka took a few steps into the villa and directly found a closed door, and then he took out the key to any door. When the key to any door approaches the door, an illusory keyhole appears under the door handle. There was a hint of surprise on Vodka's face, and then he put the key into the keyhole. With a slight turn, the door slowly opened, revealing the scenery inside the Wanchi house. Taking out any door key, Vodka stepped in. He looked towards the living room, where stone tiles of various colors appeared. Each of these stone bricks is about the size of a palm, and is filled with a kind of pure energy. Vodka knows what this stuff is. This is something Lin Yi carefully researched over the past 3 days. Using various mysterious minerals obtained from the immortal sect, one of the substances that can store spirituality was found. At the same time, do not let spiritual matter be swallowed up by this world. This is a mineral called sapphire, which is an excellent material for refining various magical weapons. Its main function is to have strong energy conductivity, and it is usually used as a pigment for arranging various formations, altars, and other vitality channels. This mineral is also a relatively common consumable among the various substances Lin Yi exchanges. After Lin Yi's experiments, he refined these minerals into brick-shaped structures. At the same time, it uses the energy characteristics of these minerals themselves to directly arrange a mantra structure that specifically locks energy in them. This is a mantra called Xuanhuan. The so-called mantra structure is the energy channel structure in the inscriptions of various magical instruments. These structures have various wonderful abilities and are three-dimensional structures composed of special characters connected to each other. According to Lin Yi's observation, these mantra structures will form different force fields, covering the objects embedded in this structure. Combined with the characteristics of the objects themselves, they will produce wonderful effects. All magic weapons and formations are actually created with this idea. These blue bricks are created by supernatural beings and can rely on the shielding ability of all things to preserve the spirituality in the energy. However, this guarantee is not perfect. The spirituality that can be preserved in this blue brick only slows down the speed of dissipation. A blue brick can store approximately 1/3 of the energy of a peak master at the 3rd level of human immortal Dao. There are about thousands of green bricks piled up in the Wanchaiwu, which just form a cube shape about 1 meter in length and breadth. The size of this green brick is 10 centimeters x 3 centimeters x 5 centimeters. With his return at this time, he saw infinite energy being sucked in from the outside world and then injected into the blue brick. This blue brick cube structure is becoming more and more crystal clear, with countless energy and brilliance slowly flashing inside it. It looks very beautiful and dreamlike. It was Ling Ai who controlled the world connected to the Wanchaiwu this time, mobilizing countless energies from outside to inject into it. When he returned, these blue bricks seemed to have absorbed enough energy. The energy stopped injecting, and Lin Yi's eyes fell on Vodka. "Your mission is over. According to my rules, you will get 30% of the mission income. In the future, the contributions of bounty hunters will be recorded in terms of contribution points. I will compile a list of the items in the Wanchaiwu in the form of contribution points. When you have enough contribution points, you can exchange for any item in the Wanchaiwu. From today on, everything in the Wanchaiwu, except food, must be exchanged with contribution points. Including fine wine," he said, glancing at Lafite red wine, the drunkard. When Lafite wine heard this, his face suddenly fell, and he struggled hard. "No, Store manager, you can't do this. I can't live without wine, that's my life. Hee, if you want to drink, work hard to make money. You can buy wine from the Wanchai. Xuanhuan heard this, his face suddenly fell, he looked at himself, his small arms and legs, his face was full of helplessness. His fighting power is not as strong as those of his own people, he is still in his infancy and needs a long time to grow up. At this time, Ling Ai's voice changed, but in the future, as the number of bounty hunters increases, the Wanchai will become more and more lively. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 648. In the future, all drinks and drinks in Wanchaiwa's rooms will be charged based on contribution points. There are two types of contribution points. One is daily contribution points, and the other is exchange contribution points. Daily contribution points can be used to live in the House of Everything. The way to get daily contribution points is very simple. You can exchange them with various materials, such as gold, grain, wine, various valuable minerals, etc. The redemption of contribution points must be obtained by completing tasks. In the future, the tasks in Wanchaiwa will also be divided into levels. Depending on the power level of the mission. Allocate 5 levels. 5 levels: mortal, human immortal, ghost immortal, earth immortal, and heavenly immortal. The contribution points of each level of tasks are also different. Depending on the value of the task, the contribution points will also fluctuate. In short, this will be a relatively complicated system, and you have to learn to adapt slowly. I treat all bounty hunters equally. Of course, as store clerks, you will receive a certain level of daily contribution points every month, used to consume various supplies in the store. For example, if you really want to drink Lafite wine, work hard in exchange for daily contribution points. Only those who work hard and give value can get what they want. Also, let me tell you something. If you have not reached the void tribulation of the celestial realm, you will not be able to stay in any world for a long time. Because most worlds have mechanisms to eliminate foreign invaders. Because of the shelter of the House of All Things, we can temporarily live in this new world with this weird mysterious power. But we can't go out at will unless we establish a contractual relationship with the people in that world. So you will have to stay in the House of Everything most of the time. The House of Everything can provide the simplest accommodation and food, but the more powerful power and life you want to obtain in the future, you will have to pay the price for it. Listening to Lin Yi's words, everyone's eyes showed a trace of expectation and solemnity. Wanchaiwa is building a brand new system, and they have a vague feeling that maybe Wanchaiwa's name will spread to countless worlds. And they will be the first batch of veterans of this system. Although they don't know what kind of benefits the system will bring to them. But they were still slightly looking forward to something like this that would be famous all over the world. Moreover, the All Things House can exchange lifespan, which is very attractive to everyone. As long as you have enough contribution points, you can continuously gain lives. And the mission of the Master House is not very dangerous. Although the future is hard to say, at least it is within their acceptance range now. Lin Yi looked at Vodka. Today's task can be regarded as a human immortal level task. A perfect soul crystal is worth as much as 100 years of life. Based on the profit sharing, you can get about 30 years of life. Lifespan is converted into contribution points, which is 30 points. A little contribution to the mission is equivalent to a year of life. This will be the benchmark price in the future. At the same time, this is the exchange list of Wanchaiwa. I will put it on the bar. You can come to me to exchange anything you want in the future. At this time, Shirley Sakuramiya suddenly said, if I want to introduce someone to become a bounty hunter in the Master House, is that okay? Yes, but once you become a bounty hunter, you have to leave the original world. Unless you reach the realm of void tribulation, you can travel through any world at will. Otherwise, you will never be able to leave the house of everything freely. You need to tell them this. In this world, there are gains and losses. Surely Sakuramiya nodded seriously, I understand. Lin Yi thought for a while and said, but this problem is not unsolvable, it just takes time. Outside, the scenery in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows returned to normal again, a hazy alien scene. Lin Yi sensed that half of the strange power that Xuanhuan had reserved in the past 3 days had disappeared. He confirmed his suspicion that every time the Xuanhuan was activated, it would consume a lot of strange power. In particular, the underground maze composed of infinite mazes and the rooms upstairs are even more expensive. So he's already done abatement on the ground floor and upstairs. The underground maze still maintains one level, but its area remains about 1 kilometer. There are 3 floors of housing upstairs. After all, there are not that many people in Xuanhuan at present. But if this is the case, Xuanhuan's consumption of weird auras will be greatly reduced. Lin Yi looked at everyone present and said, let's stop here today. Nothing will happen again. After hearing this, everyone returned to their rooms. Now that there are more rooms upstairs, everyone has their own bedroom. After everyone left, Sakuramiya surely stayed. She looked at Lin Yi and said slowly, I want to exchange 100 of these blue bricks. I still have a valuable raw material here. Lin Yi nodded, no, these energy green bricks were specially refined by me. It's just for maintaining consumption when we can't connect to the other world in the everything room. Originally, they can be used repeatedly and infinitely, and they can be stored again every time they are connected to the unknown world. Use them as you want, as long as you don't use too much. Because it is a special case of the Xuanhuan now, it can be regarded as a benefit for everyone. Sakuramiya Swili showed a smile on her face, that's good, I saved a lot of money again. Next time, you can try to take the task. After all, you still have 2 elderly people to support. Okay, I'll do the next task. Said, Sakuramiya Swili turned and walked to the 2nd floor, with a hint of expectation for the future in her eyes. As the Red Lotus realm goes to extinction, the Xuanhuan will be the only place for her, her grandfather, and the head maid to survive. Goal, the void tribulation of the heavenly immortal path. Only by stepping into a certain realm can you truly gain freedom. Looking at the people who left one after another, Lin Yi was silent for a moment. He looked out the French window, and the other world was always shrouded in a fog. Countless strange beings would pass by the French window from time to time. Lin Yi sighed slightly in his heart, the Qi tribulation has been completed, and the next is the tribulation of all things. This is different from the Qi tribulation. I can use the characteristics of my innate divine body to reach the level of immunity in 1 step. I can only try slowly and break through slowly. A mysterious crystal appeared in his hand, a treasure of the universe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 649. This treasure contains countless information. He analyzes it every day through the True Destiny solution and absorbs and understands the secrets contained in it. Energy, matter, soul, time, space, the 5 essences of the world are all observed by him eagerly, absorbing a little bit of information. He perfected his understanding of the universe and compared it with the method of cultivation of the immortal way. In his understanding, no matter what kind of cultivation method, it is fundamentally inseparable from the operation rules of the universe. The deeper the understanding of the universe, the smoother the cultivation will be. This is the effect of building a high-rise building. The night passed quickly, and a rooster crowed outside. The scene of the other world slowly receded from the French window. It turned into an alley again. At the exit of the alley, you can see a scene of busy traffic. It was still early in the morning, and it was already very lively outside. One after another, people passed by at the end of the alley. Looking at the lively scene outside, a faint color flashed in Ling Ai's eyes. A new day has come again. Wanjin City has been very restless these 2 days. Some unfamiliar faces have appeared in the city one after another. They seem to be very leisurely, wandering around, looking for something. Most of these people have ordinary faces, and they will not attract attention if thrown into the crowd. Only the locals of Wanjin City, especially those thieves and ruffians, have noticed these people. They have even received some warnings to be quiet these days and not do anything. The public security in Wanjin City seems to have improved. These days, both the black and white worlds and ordinary people are very quiet, as if something is staring at them, making them dare not move. Not only them, but also many foreigners with blonde hair, blue eyes, black hair, and dark skin have come here. Wanjin City seems to be playing the prelude to a storm. A homeless man in tattered clothes on the street looked at the crowd passing by on the street with dead eyes. He is a loser who has been in this rich city for more than 10 or 20 years. But he still couldn't make a name for himself, and now he has become a beggar, living from hand to mouth. Now his only pleasure is probably to sit here every day and watch the endless stream of people and the various aspects of the world. When he is hungry, he just finds a place to beg for a few bites of food. He has become accustomed to this kind of life and no longer has hope for the future. Maybe one day in the future, he will suddenly die in a dark corner. Today he was leaning against the exit of an alley, thinking about where to beg. Suddenly his eyes saw the alley, where there seemed to be a reflection. Hey, what's going on? With a strange look in his eyes, he looked carefully into the alley. I don't know when a store appeared there, and the beggar's eyes showed a trace of joy. A hidden store? Why didn't I notice it when I came here before? Haha, today's breakfast is settled. Thinking of this, he immediately got up from the ground and patted the dust on his butt. Although there was no clean place on his body, the habit of patting his butt was still retained. He walked slowly to the end of the alley and stood in front of the store. After thinking for a while, he reached out and knocked on the door. Dong dong dong. Lin Yi sat quietly in front of the French window of the Wanchaiwu, looking through the window at the beggar who appeared outside. With a smile on his lips, the opportunity has come. At this time, the strange child had appeared silently at the door. Open the door, Lin Yi said calmly. Ring ling ling. The strange child opened the door and then disappeared behind the door. The beggar looked at the door opening but saw no one, and he hesitated slightly. He stretched his head to look inside and saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi's eyes were also looking at him. What do you want? Come in. The beggar nodded and walked into the Wanchaiwa carefully with a cautious smile. He looked left and right. The decoration style in the Wanchaiwa was completely different from other shops he had seen in Wanjin City. There is a unique exotic style, which makes him a little surprised. I am also a shop for everything, and I can fulfill your wishes. Only those who are looking forward to it can enter the shop for everything. Hearing Ling Ai's words, the beggar was stunned at first, and then said with a puzzled look, well, I just want to ask for breakfast. Yes, as long as you pay the corresponding price. But I don't have money. It doesn't matter, the price I pay here is not necessarily money. You can pay your life, your soul, or even sell yourself to become a servant here. I accept all feasible prices here. Hearing Ling Ai's words, the old beggar suddenly showed a trace of fear on his face. He looked at Ling Ai as if he was looking at a devil. His body was trembling, and he slowly retreated with fear on his face, as if he wanted to turn around and leave the shop for everything. Lin Yi saw his fear and smiled slightly. He slapped it casually. Wow! A mountain of gold coins fell at his feet, and the dazzling golden light instantly stopped the old beggar. He looked at the mountain of gold coins at his feet and his whole body was shaking. This is gold, this is gold. He squatted down slowly with trembling hands, his eyes full of greed for gold, no other emotions. He had long thrown away the fear, and there was only gold in his eyes. His breathing became more and more rapid, and he inserted his hands into the mountain of gold coins and held them up. But because there were too many gold coins, they fell from his hands one by one and hit the mountain of gold coins. A crisp collision sound rang out, which made him feel an uncontrollable excitement in his heart. It was an extremely crisp sound, which seduced his mind and made him unable to control his emotions. His eyes were bloodshot and he turned to look at Ling Yi. Can this mountain of gold coins be traded? Lin Yi smiled faintly, of course it can be traded. As long as you pay enough. Hoo. The old beggar's eyes were full of complicated expressions, and his breathing became more and more rapid. If I want this mountain of gold, what price do I have to pay? At this time, he was afraid, but more of a strong desire for gold. No one understood the horror of poverty better than him, and he wanted to get rid of his current state. But it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to do this, and it could even be said that he had no hope in this life. After all, he was 50 years old, which was considered old in ancient times, and a disease could kill him. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 650. Lin Yi had a smile on his face. Now, there are only 3 valuable things in you. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Diamond Suit. Your life, your soul, and your freedom. You still have about 20 years to live, and 1 year of life can buy you 10 gold coins. Each gold coin is pure gold, 100% gold, weighs 50 grams, and 10 gold coins are 500 grams. This is a huge fortune. If you use your soul, you can directly exchange it for 1,000 gold coins. If you are free, you can get 10 gold coins if you work for me for 1 year. After hearing Lin Yi's words, the old beggar fell completely into crazy thinking. 3 options, each with a huge price to pay. At this time, Lin Yi's voice seemed to be full of demonic temptation, ringing in his ears again. By the way, you can buy life here. If you become my servant, then 1 year's salary of yours can buy 1 year of life. If you keep working here, you will have eternal life, don't you think? If you choose option 1, even if you get enough gold, your lifespan will be drastically reduced and the time you can enjoy it will be limited. If you choose option 2, then you have 20 years to enjoy life, but when you die, your soul becomes my property. Each of the 3 options has its own advantages and disadvantages. But if you choose number 3, in the future, if you do things well, there will be additional rewards that can buy more lives and more wealth. The old beggar's heart was beating fast and his breathing was very heavy. Lin Yi's every word made him unbearable, and he seemed to see an extremely brilliant future. Taking a deep breath, his eyes revealed his decision. If I choose option 3, will you let me die? Lin Yi smiled slightly when he heard this. You are just my servant, you only need to carry out the tasks I assigned you. It doesn't require you to fight hard, nor does it require you to die. But other than that, if I tell you to do it, you must do it. After all, a year's worth of life is what countless people would aspire to obtain. When the old beggar heard this, his eyes showed a trace of solemnity. Finally he made up his mind. I choose no 3. I want to be your servant and serve you in front of and behind the horse. Lin Yi had a smile on his face. You will be glad for your choice. Then sign this contract. After signing, you will become my servant. A note appeared in Lin Yi's hand, with densely packed treaties on it. After the old beggar took the note, he looked at it carefully, and then solemnly wrote his name on it. As the note spontaneously ignited without wind, a mysterious force enveloped the old beggar and Lin Yi. At this time, Lin Yi also communicated with the entire Wanchaiwu. This wonderful power also spread to Wanchaiwu. At the same time, Wanchai seems to have some kind of connection with the world, and is no longer vaguely rejected by it. And Lin Yi also felt that the crisis that had been hanging outside Wanchi house was slowly dissipating. That is the malice from the world, for any outsider who intends to invade. But because the old beggar, a native, signed a contract with Lin Yi, establishing communication and contact. Let Lin Yi use the contract and use the old beggar's aura to completely cover up their abnormal existence. From now on, as long as the old beggar does not die, everyone in the Wanchai house can walk peacefully in this world like the natives of this world, without being attacked by the world. But the terrifying ability of the world itself to devour spirituality will not disappear because of the contract. This is the nature of the world. No one can disobey it, and Lin Yi can't change it. Being able to solve the evil intentions of the world is already the limit. As for the nature of the world itself, we can only find another way. Looking at the old beggar, Lin Yi said slowly, "You no longer need your previous name. From now on, your name is Jinjiu. You can call me the store manager. My name is Lin Yi. Our place is called the Wanchai View, which specializes in fulfilling the wishes of people in need. Now, go wash up and clean up first. Brandy, come and clean him up." I don't know when, Brandy has appeared in the lobby. He looked at Jin and walked over with a smile, "Follow me." Jin quickly left under the leadership of Brandy, with a trace of yearning for a new life in his eyes. Lin Yi looked outside the French window, opened the door, and stood at the door. Wei Wei stretched out a hand, exposing it to the world outside the door. Then he felt that the energy he had flowed into his palm was being rapidly extracted spiritually. This speed was terrifying. In just one breath, the energy and spirituality flowing in his hands were almost exhausted. This world seems to be very unfriendly to any supernatural forces. Even if it is a strange power, the consumption will increase 100 times. The spiritual wave slowly covers the whole body. The true life has no boundaries and the roots are fully opened. It controls its own energy with all its strength and is immune to all external influences. But the spirituality is still disappearing, but the speed is reduced by 10 times. The true destiny cannot prevent the spirituality from being absorbed. The essential power of the world is really terrifying. The true destiny can only ensure that Lin Yi will not be harmed. Even if the spirituality is completely sucked out, it will not cause any harm to his life. Well, it seems that I can't easily leave the Wanchai. I can only think of other ways. At this time, an idea has appeared in my mind. It seems that there will be some consumption. 10 minutes later, Jin, who had been washed, came out. He changed into a bartender butler's uniform, his hair had been cut short, and his beard had been trimmed. The whole person looked energetic. Seemingly not used to clean clothes, he kept twisting his body. Lin Yi looked at him and nodded. "Then now, the first task is for you. Tell me in detail about the situation in this world." Hearing Lin Yi's words, Jin hurried over, stood beside him, and said respectfully, "This world is a planet called Blue Star. China, Anglo-American, Yingzhou, southwestern countries, Bavaria, Rakshasa Empire, and Ayan are the largest forces. We are China, which is closest to southwestern countries, Yingzhou, Rakshasa Empire, and Ayan, and is in the center. The whole world is now in the era of imperial powers, and there are often frictions and wars. There are 3 continents in the world, of which Anglo-American occupies America alone, and Bavaria, Ayan, and Rakshasa Empire occupy the Eurasian continent in the northwest and north of China.